Here we are, starting the match off. Noah Motz versus Danny McBride. A quick chase for McBride. So in this match, I think we're going to see a pretty big contrast in style, similar to what we saw in the last match. Obviously, we've got in Noah a young, mobile, big hitter. Really hits the ball hard, especially from that receiving end. And then Danny McBride, very well-known retriever. If we were talking about the comparison to last match, I think Noah's a slightly better version of Henry, and Danny is a slightly lesser version of Robert. So this should be an interesting one, and these guys have obviously seen a heck of a lot of each other. In the commentary box with me now is someone who should know a lot about both players, given his involvement and a tremendous amount of play at this club, is Bill Barker. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Peter. Good to be here. Been on the mic a long time already. How many matches have you done? So Noah's best known, beyond his phenomenal results, as being on the short list of the people who might be the hardest hitter in the amateur game. Who would you put in that list today, and in the recent past as well?
So I think in the U.S. it's probably a tie between Noah and Henry. They both hit the ball very, very
Won
hard.
it.
Over
30-15.
across the pond.
Has it better than two.
Has a pretty intimidating force. He's probably the person that sticks out to me. And then obviously over in Australia, both Kieran Booth and Michael Williams.
Receivers point. 40-15.
Some big, strong boys coming up in the ranks here in the U.S., younger guys, and it's great to see. I think, between Henry and Noah,
Chase,
you're
better than
what
second
we were just
gallery.
talking about. But I think between Henry, Noah, Freddie, Eric, and several other guys whose names aren't coming to mind right now, we've got some really good young players now sort of coming into their 20s and what we would assume is sort of the prime years of their singles.
Okay, 40-15, better than the
and all of
door.
them are coming out of DC. So what is the reason for that, other than that they're able to start young, Bill?
In part, it's just,
On the chase.
John Motz and I were partnering in the doubles, having kids that took to the game and are about the same age and have enjoyed playing with each other, and I think that's always one of the drivers in getting any of the juniors to just keep playing, is to have a friend that they get on the court with and have fun, whether they're as good as a couple of them are turning out to be or not, because they don't have it at school, of course, so it's got to be a club that welcomes juniors. Not all clubs, give the same sort of the opportunities for juniors to be on the court as others. And DC's always been a court that juniors could get on, and so the membership when they were really young was welcoming of Eric and Noah, really, until they started hitting the ball a little too hard for the people as they were moving down from the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s handicap. At a certain point, they get bigger, hit the ball harder, and some of the older people that love playing with them, it's a little dangerous at a certain point. But Philly's a pretty good court for juniors. Barney Tanfield came up through there, and Kinsler. Freddie didn't learn the game there, but was able to get on the court a ton because of going to college down the street. How about New York? Is New York, they've got some different availability for the juniors to just jump on a court.
Yeah, so during the weekends they have clinics for members' sons. So I think that there's a bit of play on the weekends from young members, or from members' sons. But that tends to sort of the kids who are involved in those types of clinics tend to be
30-40.
sort of falling away in their early teens, like when they're 13, 14, and I'm not sure if that's due to whatever other sports which they're interested in taking precedence over court tennis and rackets, or if it's just that they move away or whatever. But it's something that I think that with Pete Dickinson coming in as the new pro who's there on weekends and really pushing to get more people involved in the weekend clinics, I think we could see some younger guys coming through the ranks. I know Freddie Bristow's a good example of a kid who I remember when he was coming as 13, 14, 15-year-olds when he was around coming to play, and he had guys like myself and his father, Zach Sachs, who were at that time were around on the weekends to play court tennis and rackets with him. And not surprisingly, a kid who's a good young athlete like that has turned out to be arguably the best young talent in the amateur game on the side of the pond. So we saw a good force there from Danny, although Noah's gone up pretty quickly to love. Looks like Noah's moving quite well, and Danny's starting to get into the match. He hasn't taken his pants off yet, so we'll see if that happens. And a good shot there from Danny. Bill, interested to hear sort of whose style you think the court favors now, because I know this is a much different court than obviously you guys are playing. Wow, that's a ridiculous shot from Noah. The former Princess court was a much different court than this, and obviously both players, I assume, learned to play there, but have very different styles. So who do you think this court favors a bit?
On the basis of familiarity with the court, I think Noah's been on the court the most of any of the players in the tournament. Danny has been playing some, but not as much as Noah. There's less of a home court advantage for the DC players now than there was back on the old court, the glass wall court, which really freaked a lot of visitors out and provided a couple of wins in my career that were totally undeserved, but were a feature of just how much the home court advantage was there. I think they introduced the contrast in styles here, there may be tough to find two guys that are further apart in sort of the degree to which they utilize power in the game. Danny is not going to hit a lot of forces past Noah, and Noah doesn't even really need to hit a force past you. You'll get out of the way a lot of the time when he goes right down the middle, and or I know I will. I don't know. Have you played Noah?
I don't think I have played Noah that I can recall. I may have played him
Chase, better than
years ago when he was not quite as good as he is now. Maybe misremembering that, though. I know we've played, you and I have played a number of times, both in singles and doubles, during the Whitney Cup and the Silver Racket. But seeing Noah now and sort of what he's developed as a player is pretty impressive. He's become more of a complete player. I think a few years ago, having watched him at the Whitney Cup, he was relying a little bit too much on his power, and he was a bit raw. I think now you're seeing him cut the ball around the court a bit more, and then using the power and the forcing at sort of a bit better time, rather than just trying to force the force, if you will. I think from Danny's perspective in this match, you're certainly going to want to stay away from that because that's Noah's biggest weapon. And you're going to want to probably challenge things like his cut volley and his floor game, because obviously that's where Danny's most comfortable as well, and that's where he has his biggest weapons.
Receiver leads.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a chance I'm going to give Danny here. He's been my doubles partner at the Whitney Cup at times, so everybody's kind of played with everybody else on our team at one point or another.
Lost the chase.
in the booth here with
30
Ryan
all,
Carey. Of
better
course,
than
we
two.
partnered only once, but I think if you're going to take Noah, it needs to be right now because he's about to go up to Newport and work with Tony for a couple months. And I do think Noah's got a much more complete and well-rounded game than he had this time last year or 2 years ago, whatever. He's, there's a phase that young men go through when they discover how hard they can hit the ball, and that's a lot of fun to explore for a while, and sort of to the detriment of some of the finer points of the game. And then you get a little older and round things out.
Court favors now. I know this is a much different court.
Trajectory between squash and tennis and rackets. What was first in lawn tennis? And it was squash in college, right?
40-30.
Yeah.
Receiver leads. Better than 4.
I grew up playing soccer, squash, and baseball, so then played squash in college. Planned on playing baseball, but quit. Then when I got to the RNT, it was all squash doubles because I hated singles. And it was too tiring, and I just didn't have the patience. Then I found tennis and got pretty addicted. Started playing probably 7 times a week for about a year and a half or so. Went from about a low 20s handicap to like a 10, maybe a little bit less than that. And then found rackets and really stopped playing both other sports almost entirely. But now I think I might come back around to the tennis, at least for the doubles. I'm going to be hard-pressed to find a better rackets doubles partner than the one I just had, who's, I think, retired. So, my best days may be behind me on that court, whereas I think with tennis, especially doubles, I think that there's a longevity to this game that you can find, as I'm sure you could attest, Bill. You've been playing, for me, what seems like forever. And, an impressive style, especially coming back from that horrific Achilles injury that you had in the Whitney Cup. Actually, you're hearing from 2 players who have probably had the most well-known injuries at the Whitney Cup in recent years, between Bill's Achilles and my eye. So, we're no stranger to physical issues, and we've powered through them, respectively, and are back on court and happy to be doing so. So we've got Noah here, 30 love up, 4 love up, and Danny seems like he's trying to hang on here, but it's not looking good for the old boy. What are you calling here, Bill? Do we think Danny's got any chance of making a bit of a comeback, or do we think Noah's just going to run through him?
Let me put it this way. I would have no chance against Noah, and Danny's a bit younger and more mobile than me, but we're closer to the same category than Danny or I are to Noah these days. He's one of the top amateurs. He's, I guess, the number 3 seed in the tournament. We're looking forward to all the matches that are ahead of us. But if Noah prevails, and looks pretty likely that he will in this first set at least, I think that be sure to tune in for the semifinals is what I'm saying. We'll get some real commentators on then too. Not to take anything away from your work here, but you raised the topic about the eye injury. Noah's one of the few guys who wears protective eyewear out on the court.
30-40.
And it's a topic that comes up here and there. What are your thoughts today, and are they any different?
Well, I think, if we sort of couple rackets and court tennis together, I think if you're not wearing eye protection in rackets, you're an absolute idiot. And if you get hit in the eye, I don't wish that you do, but you really have to question someone's sanity for going out on that court with no eye protection on. I think in this sport, it's a lot less common. Good shot there by Danny. He's trying to get maybe a foothold in this game, this match. You need to win the next 2 points. I think in tennis, much less of a chance that you're going to get hit, but if you do, it's more than likely that it's either going to be doing what I did, which is hitting yourself off your own racket. I'm on a volley or a ball off the floor, then a direct hit or maybe something off the tambour or an edge. I wouldn't really be of the opinion that people should be forced to wear eye protection on the tennis court, but then again, I think I could be pretty easily convinced otherwise. There's really not much harm in it. There's certainly no harm in it. And certainly the benefits far outweigh the downside. So as I'm talking about it now, maybe I'm convincing myself of the fact that it'd be a good idea for people to follow Noah's lead. And I assume that part of the reason that he wears the glasses is because of having poor vision. But it certainly helps. Sort of doubles as a protective thing. It's a good get by Noah there. Danny's sort of scrapping here, running around, just getting the balls back. And a bit unlucky for that one to go out of court. He's going to need to hit a good serve here. He's got to focus.
Chase.
So I think there he gave Noah an opportunity to hit a forehand force because he was a little bit lazy on the backhand. If he had bent his knee and gotten that ball cross-court at the tambour, I think he would have been better off, but it is a bit more risky of a shot. How's his body doing physically, Bill?
Danny, pretty good, I guess. I mean, there's always, I think he's got some lingering things that pop up here and there, but he said he was feeling pretty good.
Better than second gallery.
He's got some ibuprofen in him, like many of us do during the tournament. I know Eric, my son, is aching out there. That's a function of his being on the squash court a bit in college, playing a little team squash, club squash, and just the heavier ball, heavier racket, tougher surfaces going out. Giving it 100% off of no reps for the last 4 months or so since he was last able to get on the court. Just makes it very tough.
Advantage server.
So, Danny is a keep the ball in play, move people east-west kind of player. And a couple years ago, that would have been effective against Noah. Noah's just gotten, as I said before, much more well-rounded, and he's just not overhitting these days. I think that I can't remember who was asking whether Noah was doing anything more than just pounding the ball around, and they just haven't been on the court with him for a while now because he is capable of lacing the ball as hard as anybody, but that is not the primary thing in his game. It's
15 love.
It's something he's got, and it's gonna show up. It's definitely gonna show up in doubles too, which is we talked about still being attracted to getting out there and playing a bunch of doubles. I mean, doubles is ridiculously fun when you have 4 evenly matched players on the court, and
15-30.
there are a couple, at least. I think, is it settled? Eric and Noah against Freddie and Henry in the semi. Everybody's through. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. Got a rooting interest in there, but I think that's going to be a good chance that'll be the best match of the day.
For sure. Interesting seeing what's going on in this game or the past game or two. It seemed like both guys may have gotten a little bit annoyed at each other for some reason or another. Saw Danny sort of tapping his racket. Not sure if that was about the ref or Noah doing something. And then you saw on the following point or two, Noah smashing a ball at the tambour where Danny was standing, missing. And then Danny in turn trying to hit a really hard force and missing high. So maybe some head hunting going on. I'm not sure what's happening on court. Or if I'm just reading into something that's
30-15, receiver leads, has it worse than 2.
Finishes if both boys calm down a bit, we could choose some better shots. Well, Danny certainly didn't have too many options there other than to get the hell out of the way. Yeah, he ducked Danny ducked there when he was 20 feet away from the ball. I guess safety first. But, there's a good option. Yeah. He thought maybe he was back in Princess Court in the old court. So here's another chance for Noah to hit one very hard. I think I might be protecting myself.
The line.
Bando.
Something that there are little couple things left to tweak on the court maybe, and one might be the sound that the bando makes. I think there's a little more space between the bando and the metal buttress or whatever it is that connects the bando, and so there's air, there's pocket of air in there. And I guess there are some engineering things you can do about that, but it is really loud when a ball cracks the bando. And I was playing Noah's dad yesterday, not successfully, but I was able to catch a couple of bandos, and from the receiver side, it's incredibly loud. And as I changed sides, the gallery, talked to the gallery a little bit about what it was like in there, and it's quite something if you're in the gallery. And Noah, of course, has got about another 30 miles an hour on his force than I do. So.
15 love.
How's your Whitney Cup team looking?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. Probably not so good. So between Spike Wilcox, who's probably not anymore, but for a very, very long time was by far the best player in the country. He got in a tough car accident and broken his leg pretty badly. I don't see him making a comeback anytime soon.
Has the first gallery, two
got Lex Myron, who's now living mostly in California and partially outside of Newport. He hasn't been playing much at all, I don't think, so I'm not sure if he'll play.
Okay, 15
Haven't
love.
seen Tom McGinnis on court in probably 2 to 3 years, really since before COVID.
Second
so
gallery.
I assume that he's not going to be involved. Jonathan Larkin's torn his ACL, so assume that he's going to be out. He didn't even play last year when he was healthy. And then Nicolas Victoire is French and doesn't live in the United States anymore, so he's out. And lastly, you've got me, who I think I've sort of stretched as far as I possibly could with the amount of tournaments that I've played over the past few years. And I've got a wife who's starting to sort of raise some serious questions about my involvement in various tournaments. So it might be an exceptionally weak New York team this year, especially if at least I don't come out. But, you hope that some of those guys will come back and they'll all get the go-ahead and that we'll be competitive. It certainly also doesn't help that we basically have the New York team between us and Green Tree. So it's sort of a half-baked team, no matter what. Good shot there from Noah. But obviously, teams like Philadelphia now have improved a lot. New England has gotten a lot better and combined. Wow, great volley from Danny. No fear there. And then obviously the DC team, having won the last Whitney Cup, fantastic performance from the team. Some really clutch matches being played, and a lot of close. I feel like there was a few 2-1s and sort of 5-all games, and it seemed like you guys prevailed in just about every single one of those. So was that the first one in a while or ever for you guys? What's the deal there?
Oh, yeah, it was the first one. We came close a couple of times, 2-3 times, and lost 3-2 to New England a couple of times before. 3-1 another time to them, and finally won one. It was our turn. Of course, New York and Green Tree had won the previous 2 years. No, New England and New York and Green Tree. I think it's 4 different teams in the last 4 years. Last 4 played. Of course, we missed one because of COVID. Yeah. And I think my money's on Philadelphia this coming year if they can get Mike Knoll to come back and play on their team. He's played with them. Didn't make it last year.
Is the line.
I guess we might expect Freddie not to be in Philly after he graduates from college. So I think they got to do it this year. And if they, you've hopefully been watching Henry Smith earlier today give Rob Schenkman a very tough match.
Worse than 5. Time,
I know
please.
there was a little pre-game bookmaking going on there, and I think Henry hit the over by a lot on games 1.
Yeah, Henry's playing well. We were talking about during the match. He's sort of eliminated a lot of weaknesses that I think he had previously. That's an unbelievable get from Noah there, and even better shot return from Danny. Obviously, Freddie's sort of built an all-around game that's gotten him to the low single digits, and I think he's got the potential to get well beyond that. He's going to have to put in some hard work both on and off the court to do so, but I think he's up for it.
Chase,
I think Henry,
5 yards.
You've seen him go from mid to low 20s down to a mid to high teens, and I think having watched him play with Robert, Ryan and I were talking just before this match, and I think that was an example of Henry raising his level, but not in an unsustainable way. I think he just played a really good match, and that's his level now.
Okay.
So I see him more as a maybe low
receiver
teens
leads.
or possibly
First
getting into the
chase
high single
is-
digits pretty soon.
Sorry, it's 5
rather than
yards.
staying in the high teens and just having one-off worldy match. And he's got far fewer weaknesses. And I think the things that caused him to lose that match, I would say, are they're correctable, right? So a couple things with his forehand, technically, that improved, and then just
30-40.
a couple things here and there, just on the return of serve. But it's all stuff just playing more and more, especially with top players like Freddie and John Lumley, and Ben Costin if he comes over as a new pro.
2 games to love.
And Robbie and Kroll, maybe Mike, getting that type of experience and just playing and spending more hours working on it. We'll see him make some significant improvements. And I know he's up for it. He wants to get that. Great shot from Noah there. Not looking too good for Danny. It's looking like his hair is getting a bit grayer as the match is going on too, perhaps.
30 love.
And that's not a great error. That was a bit of a wild swing. So I'd like to see Danny maybe just settle down a little bit, which is definitely not the easiest thing to do with Noah. But it's opportunities like that you just can't give away. He's got to get his feet set and really focus on trying to do some damage when the opportunities present themselves.
And here's Freddie Bristow.
Hello, fans, viewers from all over the world. Match has been a pretty quick one so far. Getting us back on time, that is for sure. 40-15 now.
15-40.
In the famous third game of the second set. Noah won the first set 6-love. So I think Danny's goal is really just to get on the scoreboard at the moment.
I had the opportunity. I had to get home yesterday, but I was listening to the commentary on YouTube as I was driving home. It was very safe. I wasn't watching, but I was listening. And which of the 11 games they're all famous, but if you had to rank them by fame, you seem to be on top of this. Where would you rank them?
Well, obviously the 11th game is the most important game. At that 5-all decides the set. Many times you won't get to that 11th game.
Juice.
The games you would always get to. The 5th game. The 5th game is you wouldn't always get to the 7th, but the 7th game is important. The 5th game is very important. As we saw in the last match, actually, it was 2-all. Henry and Rob had a 20-minute 5th game, battling out, and it almost decided the second set, I think. And the 7th game as well is also important. I think for Henry in that last match, both sets, that 7th, well, actually the 8th game was in both sets of the last match.
3 games to
Whereas
love.
4-3 to Robert Schenkman in both sets, and he managed to get to 5-3. And 4-all and 5-3 are very different scorelines.
I'm impressed, and mostly surprised that you took the bait on actually ranking the importance of these various games against each other.
15
But
love.
do you guys, Peter, Freddie, you have a rackets history against each other?
We were actually talking about that, I think, when we were in Detroit. We have not played a competitive singles match. We've played plenty of non-competitive singles matches and always had good games. We played in the U.S. Amateur Final in doubles. I would argue that my partner was certainly, on paper stronger than Freddie's and Christian Ports. Fat Christian is my partner, and in shape, Zach Sachs on his home court as Freddie's partner. So, I think they actually they played a lot closer in quality to maybe what one would expect just going into that match. And we snuck it out in 4. It was definitely a close game. We sort of fell over the line in that 4th game.
15-30.
Freddie, I would say maybe even more than his tennis, has made a huge jump in rackets from, just in this past year, from sort of being in the rankings in the high teens or low 20s up to the, sort of the upper echelons of the game. And even though his Neptune ranking hasn't gotten as high, I'd say he's an elite world ranking top 10 player, and I think his Neptune ranking is lagging behind because it hasn't given him enough time. But he's had multiple wins off of top 10 Neptune players, which is, in my opinion, the more accurate ranking system. We're going to not allow Freddie to talk right now, but I think Freddie's going to say that the ranking system for rackets that suits him better is the one that he's ranked higher in. However, I would like to remind him that there are plenty of players that haven't been able to play the singles tournaments and haven't participated for one reason or another in all the singles tournaments for the elite rankings, whereas the Neptune rankings have taken into account many more years and many more results. But anyway, Freddie, great rackets player, great tennis player, great young man, certainly backs himself. We're just not going to let him talk right now. He wants the mic. We'll let him talk. We'll let him talk about himself some more.
No, the Elite World Rankings, I think, is the correct rankings today. But I would have one suggestion for the Neptune rankings if we're going into this, is that you should include the Foster Cup. Because out of the tournament being played, and if you allow club championship matches to be put in, I think a Foster Cup is more than eligible to be put in as well. And
as a Foster Cup champion, you have an interest in this.
I do, but the Neptune rankings really don't mean much anymore as well. They don't affect any seedings, or unless you're outside the top 15, which in that case is not for me.
Since I haven't played any tournaments lately, I'm not, but I still hold over Freddie's head that I'm ranked several spots ahead in the Neptune rankings and in the top 10 myself. But let's get back to court tennis. Jeff Ellis in Aiken, South Carolina asked a question. Just great commenting, fellows. No love for the Aiken Tuxedo Chicago team at the Whitney Cup. I'm going to be maybe controversial here and say no, we have no love for the Aiken Tuxedo Chicago team. I'll let Bill speak in one moment. Chicago doesn't have any players. I think, did they even have guys show up to Bill? Maybe you'll be able to answer that one. And then Tuxedo, not really the one that I'm thinking of. It's below 15 in Aiken.
Better than half the yard.
Injured Ben Cook and Rakesh maybe in that sort of category at the upper level. But I think that team, you need some new blood maybe. George Handy thinking the same thing, surely just an oversight. No, don't think it was an oversight. Is it? The gauntlet's being thrown down for you guys. I want to see some higher level play from you boys, at least down in Aiken. Get more guys coming through like a George Handy, but not leaving the state and coming to Europe.
Well, there's some hope with Nikki Howell down in Aiken now. I know that I was just playing the tournament last weekend in Newport for the old but not oldest guys, and Jeff Ellis was playing very well, and Rakesh was playing well, and I believe they each credited Nikki for some of their good play, and it makes all the sense in the world that with him there, and that they finally got a pro on hand, that they're all going to get better, and hopefully there will be some players that develop there.
Second gallery.
I think that they got to steal John Beam away back to Tuxedo. I think he played for New York.
Advantage server.
Well, you know, that's probably something that
The
could
chase
be,
is
you
the
know,
second
finessed
gallery.
in some way. I don't know.
Well, is anyone really a member of Green Tree? So
Fault.
if that's the case, anyone can play in any team.
Yeah, we were actually talking about that earlier. Green Tree is just, New York. It's not even New York's second team. It's just they sort of split the guys up now because there's no one that's allowed to play in Green Tree anymore, sadly, which is, I think, to most of us in the court tennis world, really just too bad. Because from what I hear, at least, having never played on the court, it's a fantastic court, a beautiful setting, just a really cool place to be. So I doubt it, but maybe in the future we'll be able to play out there. And a great point played by Danny and Noah. Danny looking like he's maybe moving a little slower right now.
Let me throw a question out to Freddie. He's in school, so he knows the format here. A little compare and contrast essay between the Van Allen and the Whitney Cup from your experience.
Well, the Van Allen, it's a bit more tennis, so it's singles and doubles. So it's a little bit more intense. It goes over 2 days, and they're both as exciting. It's great playing team events. I think everyone really rallies behind the team. It starts to get exciting if you're in the further levels of the tournament.
15-all.
But I would say the Van Allen for me is my sort of preferred tournament, just because of sort of its prestige. It's every 2 years, doesn't happen often, and you can only play it until you're 26 years old. So hopefully I've got the Whitney Cup for life, and I'm looking forward to playing in many, many more Whitney Cups. But for me at the moment, the Van Allen is the tournament I would love to win.
Philly Whitney Cup, they haven't won for a couple of years now. Should have won. But Mike Knoll, you got to get him on your team. Is that going to happen?
That is the challenge. Anyone with young kids, as Peace would tell you, it's tough to get them on court, especially going to a different city. We have gotten him on court recently. He's been helping John train up for the World Eliminator. And hopefully we could get him on, because if we can get Mike Knoll, we would have a pretty solid team there. Yeah, this year wasn't our year. Ryan outdid us in the second pair, beating Henry Smith and John Kroll. Incredible win.
Yeah, if you're watching this match, and we apologize for not focusing all that much on the on-court goings-on, because we've gotten distracted by our own stuff. Noah's. You've watched enough of the match to see how good Noah is, and he had an exceptional match, as did Ryan, to take that 6-5 in the third against Henry and John Kroll. So I think that from my perspective, you guys want to have figure out a way to have Henry play back going forward, and he's sort of the usual stereotype is a squash player's better off the back wall and the side wall, and the tennis player's got the volley, and it's not 100% predictable as to who should be back and up in different situations, but that's my experience. And Henry's got a great squash background. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that? The stereotype of the up and back strengths of squash and tennis players? Most people come into the game through one of those two sports.
Yeah, I think that's certainly right. I mean, you look at the guys who are the best up guys in the country, the Ben Steins, the Ben Cooks,
Chase,
of the
you're
world,
worse than the
Brooke
last gallery.
Hazeltons. I mean, all are really good tennis players, or were really good tennis players, and made the transition, and now are fantastic, up guys. And then most of the back guys that have come from squash, Addison West, Max Myron,
Chase, worse than
myself,
5, 2 chases.
You guys that converted from playing squash, typically are much better at that. Todd Marinoff, another tennis guy, really good as an up guy. So, Bill, definitely that rings true. We've got a 5-love, 6-love, 5-love lead for Noah Motz. It'd be hard to imagine that he could blow this one. But Danny McBride is on the board, 15-love up. Ryan Carey, who you cannot hear from right now, has already bet that Noah will be winning this at 6-love.
15-love, receiver.
He's got no comment
Yard worse than the last
to my right in the commentator's box. Let's see if Noah can close this one out. That's a pretty good defense from Danny there. And then a highly questionable decision. Oh no, they were playing off a chase, so
worse than 5.
Yeah, the back wall force certainly that was it worked. So here we go, 15 all.
Won the chase.
Got a comment from Jason McElhaney. Everyone needs a George Handy on their team. Jason, I think that everyone needs a guy like you on their team. I mean,
Chase,
the enthusiasm and the good spirit and good nature that you played with in this Whitney Cup was pretty impressive. You were my MVP.
Out of court.
George Handy, a lot would say he's just a dime a dozen.
I love the Aiken team. They travel so well. They come into town, a lot of them, a couple days before the Whitney Cup, make a real
40-30
team experience. Being in New York, it's a fantastic time to be in New York 2 weeks before Christmas, roughly. New York is really showing off that time of the year. And definitely worth coming in, and it's worth coming to watch the Whitney Cup if you've never done so. It's really unlike anything else in the sport in terms of just being a team competition that a lot of people take very seriously, and that's the match. We'll pick this up later.
6-love.
Yeah, 6-love victory to Noah Motz, never in doubt. Danny's going to be probably looking forward to the doubles now. Or no, they lost in doubles, so he's out. So next match coming on shortly will be Freddie Bristow versus John Motz. Looking forward to commentating that as well, since I have nothing better to do and I'm not a singles player anymore. Speak to you guys in a moment. Thanks.